Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Sean Tierney from the Automation Blog and School, and this week on the show I meet up with Quinton Lowry of Softing to learn all about their dataFEED OPC Suite. Now you may notice that this episode is labeled as a demo episode, and that's because in essence Quinton gives us a demo of the software, but I thought it was so descriptive I thought it made sense to share it with the audio audience as well. If you think I'm wrong about that after listening to it, please let me know by clicking on the contact link over at theautomationblog.com. Now, before we jump into the show, I do want to say thank you to our sponsor who made the several hours it took to put the show together possible. That is theautomationschool.com. If you know anybody who needs PLC, HMI, or SCADA training, please send them over to theautomationschool.com. And with that, let's learn all about Softing's OPC Server dataFEED OPC Suite. Quinton, thank you for coming on the show to talk to us about dataFEED. I'm really excited to learn all about this product. We've been following it as new versions have been coming out. We've been talking about it on the morning show, but man, I'm really glad to have you on this show to talk about it and demo it. But before we jump right into it, could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. My name is Quinton Lowry. I'm business development engineer for Softing. I'm located in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's where our North American headquarters are. But Softing, as a whole, is headquartered outside of Munich in Germany. And today we're going to be talking about dataFEED OPC Suite, and that is under the industrial automation branch. So Softing as a whole, it's got a lot of different industries that we play in. I'm specific to industrial automation, which is why we're linked up with Sean here. And this OPC suite that we're going to talk about is very similar to Kepware. It's a connectivity software solution, so you can hook into different PLCs, which is what I'm going to demo today, and broadcast that data out. But as we go through it, there's a lot of different other connectors as well that we can connect and push data out various ways.
Yeah, and I saw that one of the interesting things about yours is that you have a 72-hour runtime trial, which is nice because if you need to test something overnight, a lot of the other systems, they maybe run for a couple hours or 24 hours. So I thought that was interesting too. But let me give it back to you for you to tell us all about the product.
Yeah, so we'll dive in and focus on the product. I think that what you just mentioned with the 72 hours is a perfect um, way to go to market with this, because honestly, it's like if you just have a 2 hour window, that's not really enough time. 72 hours, that's not just run it for 72 hours and you're done. You can actually restart the program and run it for another 72 hours. So you can test and get a lot of good testing before actually purchasing. So I really like the way that we bring it to market that way. And it also helps to just make sure everybody vets it to the extent that they need to, right? So you can get really comfortable with it, understand what it does, and be sure it's going to work for your application versus just buying it and hoping that it works how you intend it to. So I really do enjoy that we have that, and it helps um, people just vet their solutions in a lot of ways. But I'll dive in a little bit more. I'm on the website right now. If you just put in dataFEED, OPC Suite, Softing, and Google, this will be the top hit. Uh, if we scroll down right here, you can see there are a bunch of different connectors like I was referring to. So we connect to a wide variety of PLCs, but we can also connect to databases, cloud, OPC servers, OPC UA servers, and some other protocols as well. And so I would recommend, if you're interested in anything like this, come online, come down. You can do the download. There's some how-to videos as well, but there's a lot of little how-to applications to help you get set up and running. And you can also always reference this video that we're doing now for the automation demo to connect to your PLCs. But it is pretty straightforward, kind of once you get the lay of the land of how it works and how it operates. So I would you'd want to download version 5. That's the latest. We're still supporting version 4. We came out with version 5 a couple years ago, but we still have a big install base of version 4, so that's why it's still out there. Especially in our pharma companies and those companies that are regulated, they obviously can't just switch to a new version without having to go back through that whole process. Um, to get everything accredited and documented the right way. But you can see there's a lot of different things you can connect into. Today, I'm going to focus on just two of the most common PLCs, Rockwell and Siemens. And so I've already downloaded and installed dataFEED. I'm actually running it in demo mode as well. For me, when I'm just doing demos or showing stuff to people, there's no need for me to have a license. I used to have one, and then when I updated PCs and re-download, I was like, I don't even really need one because it's rare that I'm running tests or anything like that for longer than 72 hours. But the way this works is anything you want to pull or ingest data from is labeled as a data source. So you can see here, we can gather data from the different things, Siemens, Rockwell, Modbus, the different PLC types, different OPC server types. Tonal server is our own proprietary thing. It lets you get around the classic DCOM settings that you had. So we actually do have a bunch of people use that for OPC Classic, and instead of having to deal with DCOM, which has now been discontinued by Microsoft, you can use the tonal server. But you can pull data from databases. MQTT broker, that would be your cloud solutions, AWS, Azure IoT, and then just ingest XML files. So that's something we added more recently. Is there's a lot of little IoT devices out there that will populate data via XML. We can read those in, and everything defined on this left side is where you're going to source your data from.
Hey everyone, just a quick interruption here to thank our sponsor of this week's show, theautomationschool.com. If you know anybody who needs SCADA, HMI, or PLC training, please ask them to visit our sponsor's website, theautomationschool.com. And with that, back to the show.
Before you send it back out, if we click on data processing like I just did, you can see you can do different things with it. So a lot of times I'll have customers, hey, I'm trying to take data from a Rockwell PLC and write it to a Siemens PLC. Well, you would need to configure both of those as data sources, and I'm going to get to that, but I was just giving you the lay of the land. And then you can exchange data between your data sources if you wanted to, or move it between various things. And there's also a pre-processing engine. What is that? You can say you need to convert or do math or whatever it may be on your data before it gets written back out. You can do that here as well.
How about store and forward? I know that's a very popular feature for a lot of software out there.
Yeah, so there's store and forward feature. We're actually one of the only ones that has OPC UA store and forward. So that's something that was added. We're continuously updating. I'm not actually running the latest version right now. We just released one this week, and I haven't went through and updating it. But yes, we do have store and forward. We actually do have OPC UA store and forward as well. So this one's a little bit different, and that it's for when you're writing like database and stuff like that. But we actually do have OPC UA store and forward. You can see right here. Because typically OPC UA is you're polling data, you're getting data. If that connection breaks, well, you've missed that data, because it's more of like, hey, I'm continuously pulling from the OPC UA server. So yeah, we got the store and forward capability built in to where you can actually get all that data time-stamped and sent into your client if that connection was to drop out for whatever reason. So data processing, we covered that. So if you did want to manipulate it before it goes back out, you do that here. Data destination. So if I've connected to a Rockwell PLC, a Siemens PLC, whatever I have defined in the data source can then be populated via any of these data destinations. And in this case, like I said, I'm going to do it OPC UA, can also do it classic, but if you were to write it out to any of the databases, so SQL databases, NoSQL databases being Mongo or Couch database, or just write it to a file. I have customers that do that as well. Hey, we want to gather data from the PLC. We want to write it to a file locally as that happens. Can this do that? Yeah, we can set that up. I think it can do it XML, CSV, or as a text file. So if you have different formats for that text file as well. I would point out a cool little feature if you were to download the demo. If you come down here to licenses, You can see mine since I don't have a license. You can click this little checkbox, show the license needed for this configuration. And so it lets you know what to order. So that's another thing about the way they've done the product that I like is you don't have to purchase the entire thing, like the entire suite. You can buy individual components of it. So right now, since I have OPC UA turned on, that's the OPC UA license. If I was to use the data handler, which is that exchange that I was messing with, or writing it to a database or to a file, that would be the part number. Now, you can, if you want to buy all the functionality built into the suite at one time, you can do that. It costs a little bit more. I think once you go over 2 or 3 licenses, you're better off just buying the suite all up front.
Okay. Yep.
But if you were like, hey, I just want to gather data from this one type of PLC and I want to send it out via OPC, then you can stay on the cheaper end of that and just do that one license and it'll be good to go. But the cool thing is, I guess, with me pointing this out is that you can, if you download it in demo mode, get it up and running, have your application doing whatever you need it to, and you click this button, it shows you what you need to order for that configuration to run. So it kind of takes the guesswork out of what do I need to order, or who do I need to talk to figure out what I need to order. This tells you exactly, hey, to run this configuration that you're in, this is what you need. So I think that's a neat feature. It kind of simplifies things for everybody.
Now, let me ask you a question. Back on the web page, is there a list of all the different options that are available with those license or pot numbers?
Yeah, so this is listing for the suite itself, but if you
Okay.
scroll on down, you'll see the individual components as they're listed out.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then if I was, for example, to say, hey, I want to do Siemens and OPC, I'd click on this, and then it'll take us over there and I can just scroll down to its individual part number.
Oh, and then you see all the add-ons as well. So you see,
Yeah,
in this case, we said we wanted Siemens OPC server. So we see the number for that. And then if you want additional things, like let's say, you wanted
Rockwell or
Rockwell, you want to add Modbus, you want to add B&R or Mitsubishi. So those are all there as well.
that's exactly right. And that would be the
Nice.
best way to do it.
Yeah, because it's going to be, in most cases, you're not going to need every different PLC type because you probably just have one you're talking to.
Correct. That's exactly right. Most of the time it's just one type, especially depending on, I do have customers who use it to, if they've got a bunch of different
Yeah.
PLCs in their plant and they want to kind of tie everything into one, right?
Mhm.
It's like I don't want to have an OPC UA server for my Rockwell and a separate one for my Siemens and then
Yeah.
another one for my database. I want it all to be under one server endpoint, then you can do that.
And you're learning one package too, and you have one place to go for the support. Yep.
Yep, that's exactly right. So you can kind of simplify if you set it up that way.
Now it looks like you also have a USB key versus a software license.
Yeah, that's a good point to go over. So the USB hardware key, so it's essentially, hey, the license is associated to that USB key. So to run it, you need to have that USB key plugged in. The other way it comes if you don't have that is when we send you a license code. And that's actually just when you install dataFEED, it installs the license manager as well. So if I was to
Okay.
click that,
Yep.
it opens up the license manager. We give you like a 16-digit code. You put that in right here, hit activate license, and then it grants it. So pretty
Perfect.
simple. But if you're using the USB dongle, you'd come over here to the left-hand side. Click. I don't have it plugged in, so it's
Sure.
grayed out. But you'd click that, it would see it, and then it would activate it that way. But the license key is probably by far the one that's the most common, and it associates it with like your hard drive, your MAC addresses, all that stuff, and ties it to that PC.
Hey everybody, just wanted to break in here quickly with a message from our sponsor, theautomationschool.com. Did you know when you enroll in a course at the Automation School, you get lifetime access and support? And not only that, if you use our group enrollment program to enroll 3 or more of your employees in the courses, you also get a student tracking webpage so you'll know how they're doing and when they're finished. I know a lot of places like to do a spiff where they give a a bonus or some other reward to students who finish training. So you get all of that. It's no additional charge. In fact, when you enroll 3 or more students in the group enrollment program, you actually get a discount off of the sale prices. So if you have any questions on any of this, just give them a call, 413-749-4300, and leave a message. It actually comes directly to me as a text, and then I can call you back or send you an email, whatever you prefer, to answer any pre-sale questions you have. And with that, let's go ahead and jump back into the show.
So for the demo, I'll try to keep it pretty simple, and it is pretty simple to configure. So I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty weeds on everything, but as we step through this, so if I wanted to connect to a Siemens controller, we can connect to a wide variety and come over here and add new data source, and we get our little connection wizard. And you can see the different types of connections. So we support some of the really old stuff as well. Today, I'm going to be just connecting to an S1200. And to be upfront with those, right, the 1200 and the 1500, you can get the additional licensing for OPC UA. But say you had S7 300, 400 that don't have that built in, you'd use this first protocol. In my case, the only Siemens one I have is the 1200, so I'll select it. You can name it whatever you want, right? That's just for you. If it's a particular machine, particular part of the plant, you'd put that in there just so everybody's kind of on the same page. You hit next. I'm not going to connect to the local host. Mine's actually at the IP address 192.168.10.11.
That's the address of the S7 1200?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yep. So that's the address of my S7 1200 that I have in the lab over here. To do a simple verification, I can hit that button and you can see connection test was successful. It's telling me the actual order number of that guy, what software revision it's running. I can then go to next. You can enable filtering. I'm not going to do that. Enabling filtering as in, hey, I only want to view the tag names that match. If you wanted to block out part of your PLC tags, in our case, we'll just gather everything. But say you did want to roll out some specific tags, you could set that up to do that. Go to next, and you can see it's already went in and gathered that data. If I wanted to refresh it, I could hit that button and it'll refresh it. But we can go through here and see my tags that I have defined. And I don't have a lot in here. It's fairly new. I haven't done much with it yet, to be honest. I've just got it up and running. I've played with my Rockwell one a lot more, or I have. But we can hit finish. It's there. It's defined. Pretty simple.
Now in that browser, just for the audience, that browser we were seeing, if you're not familiar with Siemens, we were seeing data blocks, but we were also seeing PLC tags. So we were seeing input, output, and memory. So that would be considered our PLC tags. And then, and I'm really saying this for the Rockwell guys, we're seeing data blocks as well, right? So data blocks would be like tag databases that you are creating. And you know, this one, it looks like you have some instance ones with some in-outs, some inputs, outputs, statics, and so on.
Yeah, I just have some basic stuff for the demo defined in this one.
Yep. So this is what I would expect to see if I was connected to, or if I was looking inside the TIA portal program. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Back to you.
No, that's perfect. Thanks for doing that. I'm actually just learning the Siemens stuff. So if I go to Rockwell, it's very similar. Come over here and hit add new item, give it a name again. You can see we support compact logics, control logics, slicks, and PLC 5s. In my case, I'm going to a control logics. So then again, I need to put the IP address. So very similar on the Rockwell side. You just input the IP address. In this case, if it was compact logics, it would be directly the IP address. In my case, I'm going into a bridge card actually. So I hit next, and you can see, hey, CPU slot. If it was in a different slot than default 0, you'd need to do that. In my case, it is. There's some advanced stuff in there if you wanted to do the filtering again as well on the particular tags. And then some more of the dialed in stuff if you wanted to dial in how fast you're reading or not reading, or making those requests, I should say, to the PLC as it's running. But same connection test button, hit that guy. You can see it's successful. We're using Rockwell's 44818 port. Address settings. And this time it didn't auto-populate, so it's a little bit different compared to the Siemens one where it did it. So I just simply hit refresh, and I do have thousands of tags in this one versus the few in the other one, so it'll take it just a couple of seconds. But we do support the UDTs.
Yep.
All your standard stuff.
It didn't automatically refresh, but you just hit the refresh button and it all populated.
That's exactly right.
Excellent.
And we do support program tags as well, so I can hit finish on that. Lastly, we need to save this configuration, right? So I've defined my connections and my addresses, my addresses within those, my tags that I want to see. Hit save. If I was to connect to anything else, I would define it right here. We go straight to data destination. I already have my OPC UA server endpoint activated. By default, it populates that in there. If you did want to use the certificates, username, password, you can configure all that right here. So I don't have that set up. Trying not to complicate things too much, but it's definitely feasible to set that up. And that's a lot of the reason people go with UA is for that security, right? So I do want to point it out. That's defined. I think I also have classic defined in here, but I can simply set this guy to start. It'll take it a few seconds. You can see it says running, but in demo mode. So we should be good to go as long as I've done everything right. Yeah.
I just want to throw out, all you did was you defined each programmable controller.
Yep.
You didn't create a long list of tags. You browsed the tags so we could see them. Yep. But really all you've done on your data sources is said, okay, we got an S7-1200, we got to control Logix. So that was pretty easy.
Yeah, it is pretty easy to get up and running for sure. We try to keep it as easy as possible in that sense. So you just define what you're trying to gather the data from. On the PLC side, it's simply like we did, right? Put in the IP address and tell it where it's located. And then it goes out and browses that, gathers that data, pulls it in, and then once we've set up, hey, this is where we're getting the data from, we came over to where we want to send it out. So we're going to send it out via UA and Classic in this case, and save that configuration since we've activated those, and now we can set it to run and go look at it.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to break in here quickly to let you know I have a new show and podcast available on all the same platforms as the Automation Podcast. It's called the Automation Morning Show, and most mornings I go through about 200 web pages from different industrial automation product vendors. I collect all their new articles, blogs, and product news, and then I share it with you in a 15 to 25 minute show. So if you're interested, please subscribe to the Automation Morning Show on your favorite platform. And now we'll get back to this show.
So I will close out of here, and if I just come into my OPC UA client.
So you have your own OPC UA client for testing purposes.
Yep, it's a free demo as well. There's not a runtime on it. There's actually, we're not the only ones that have a free UA client out there. But yes, we do have our own UA client just for testing purposes, and we actually have quite a few people use it as well. And it's a nice little thing to have for just making sure, hey, did I set everything up right? So to connect to the UA server, since it's running locally, it's pretty simple. But I will show you this. If you were to do it from a different machine, right, you wanted to verify the connectivity, you'd come in here and just copy your server endpoint.
Okay.
Come back to the UA client, double click on add session. You could paste that UA endpoint right here. If it's local like mine is, you can see it finds it.
You can just browse to it on the local. Got it.
Yep. if I did use that security, I'd obviously need to put that in here, my username and password to authenticate, but I can hit validate. Comes back green. Hey, we're good. Hit OK. You can see we can go to configuration browse, and now we're going to see everything that's in that dataFEED suite that's configured. So if I go to objects, this is just standard housekeeping stuff, how like the server itself, how's it running, what's under it. But what we're interested in is, hey, this is where we name that Rockwell PLC. This is where we name the Siemens PLC. So if we look at that, you can see here's our tag structures. These are our UDTs and arrays. If we just had flat tags like we do, you can see they're right here. I have some counters in there. You can come over here, see the value. If you actually wanted to write values back, you could do that as well. So you could put in, and this is going to change, but you could put in whatever, hit write with the client, and you can see the value updated. But pretty simple configuration, at least, especially I know the whole reason this started is you were looking for a solution for your students to play with. So I'd highly recommend this as something, at least get your feet wet, learn about it. And you don't have to spend any money to do that. So you can browse the tags, the UDTs, the arrays. Same thing on the Siemens, right? You got your data blocks that like we were just looking at, if you want to see the values in that. And then all that access. So if I had 5 PLCs in here, if I had 10, if I was pulling data from the database, whatever other types, you can come in and have all this aggregated under one OPC UA server endpoint as well. So that's, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I love how it just, you got Rockwell one, you get Siemens one, and they're just tags now. And that makes the guy who's doing either the data collection or the historian or the SCADA package, it just makes his life so easy.
Yes, for sure. And that's, you can define that however you want. So
sure,
it's pretty generic how we've set it up, but it's perfect for what we're doing. But if it was a particular part number for a PLC or however you wanted to define it as you could come in here and do that.
So if I wanted to see like a value changing, you don't have to press play on anything, right? When you change that value, I saw it update right away.
Yeah, so if I wanted to subscribe to something, so what would be a good one? One of my counters should be updated. I can double click on it. And then if I come back, and so you can see it defined it right here. If I come to data access, you can see it's now sitting there updating. But I do have other ones that don't change. I use this PLC for other things. So if we were, for example, the ones that I know, like these under my car UDT aren't going to change. So if I add it as well, I'll come back over here. You can see it's not going to change. But if I wanted to change it manually from the client, I could come over here and do 1800, define that, and you can see it's changed it here. But it'll just sit there until something else changes it, whether that be the PLC itself, some other system that's got connectivity to it.
And to add it to that data access list, you're just double clicking on it?
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. Nice. So if I want to do old type, you can see it puts it over here. I can actually define the subscription rate as well. This is all defined within the OPC UA standard, but you can see the publish intervals at a second. If I wanted to lower that or increase it, I could. And all these have defined meetings. I can't remember the exact off the top of my head, but yeah, you can. I definitely have customers who will lower that. Hey, we want our data every 200 milliseconds versus a second. And then anything associated with it over here, we're going to ask the PLC for count 2000, car, paint type, oil type, that often. So pretty neat.
Again, that even if you're a student, that 72-hour demo can be nice. I know a lot of the packages out there that have a 2-hour demo. Sometimes a lesson will take more than 2 hours to go. And and I just know there was several people I've worked with over the last 30 years that, they need to run an overnight test, and of course that wouldn't work. So, but just seeing this, I mean, it just seems so very easy to use and rock solid. That definitely, if there's anybody out there, if you're looking for an OPC UA server, and keeping in mind the other things that we talked about that it could do, pretty impressive software. Was there anything else you wanted to show us, Quinton?
No, I don't have much else. I would just point out, if you're interested, don't be afraid to go into Google, type in dataFEED OPC Suite and download it and play with it. If you have any questions, you can reach us at support@softing.us or sales@softing.us if you wanted a quote or anything like that. But it is pretty easy to download, install, verify that it works for you before you spend any money on it. Which I think just the best way to handle stuff for people. As me being a customer, I like being able to try stuff and make sure it does what I want it to before I spend money on it. And it is just a one-time cost too. That's something else I would point out. So it's buy it once and you're done. So if anybody had any questions or anything like that, we'd be happy to help.
So is there like an annual support contract if you buy it and then in a year you have questions or you need upgrades?
No, it's buy it once and you're done. You get support for the life of the product. I would say the only time you'd run into anything like that is when we make a major rev, like for version 4. We had it for years and years, and then when we went to version 5, the previous version 4 licenses don't work with version 5, so that's the only time that you'd get in this case where you're like, oh yeah, and it lists it right here. The licenses of version 4 do not work with the new dataFEED 5. So that would be the only time you'd have to pay more money, is if you wanted the newer features in version 5. But that's not something we do often. I've been with the company 5 years, and that's happened once. So
usually that would be if you're buying a new computer and you're doing a major upgrade, you got to budget that cost. Well, the fact that you don't have an annual contract, more than well makes up for that, I think.
Yes, it does. When people learn that, they're pretty tickled. But to that point, is like when you download the software, you get it installed and running, unless you're like worried about adding future features or something like that. Normally people will get it installed, it's doing what they want, they buy it, it's done, and it sits there and runs, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you're not, unless you're making major changes or adding new connectivity to different database types or something like that, then you're good to go and you don't need another license. So
yeah. If the process is profitable, don't touch it. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
Well, Quinton, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I learned a lot. I can't wait to try this out myself. This looks so easy to use. So I'm looking forward to it. And again, thank you for coming on the show and giving us not only an overview of dataFEED, but giving us a demo as well.
Well, I really appreciate you having us on. I think it's great that you're doing that for the community, not just us, but other vendors and different people you have on. I think that's really beneficial for everybody, and it's good for our industry. So I really appreciate it, and thank you for taking your time.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I want to thank Quinton for taking all the time out of his week to put that demo together for us. I really feel like I understand how to use their dataFEED OPC Suite now. With that said, if you did enjoy this episode, please consider giving us a like and a sub. And if you want to follow me or get in touch, you can do so over at automation.locals.com. You'll also find all of my training courses over at our sponsor's website, theautomationschool.com. With that said, I want to wish you all a very safe, happy, and healthy week. And until next time, my friends, peace.